Welcome to Phails. We're joined again by James Ochoa, LPC. He's ADHD Pathfinder and the author of Focus Forward, Navigating the Storms of Adult ADHD. Currently working on a book, a follow-up book to that called When the Shiny Wears Off, Navigating the Lifetime Storms of Adult ADHD. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Wave to everybody. They're in
appreciate you having me back here. We're about 6 months later. Of course, it seems like more has happened than I could even shake a stick at. So there's been a lot of new things to talk about.
Heck yeah. And we've learned your life story. In the first one, we learned your life story, and we talked about 5 questions with regard to thriving with ADHD. And in this episode, in this time we're going to spend together, we're going to talk about other strategies, resourcing. We're going to talk about tools and techniques for thriving with ADHD, going further down that line of thought. So if you guys want to know more about thriving, resourcing with ADHD, if you have ADHD, if you're neurodivergent, if you just get a little anxious sometimes, I think a lot of this stuff is for you. Keep watching, and you're gonna get something out of this.
Right, absolutely. Because guess what? The anxiousness doesn't go away. You learn to live within it.
Yeah,
we'll talk about what that means.
That's a good point. These tools and techniques don't transform you into someone who doesn't have anxiety anymore.
Correct.
And that's kind of that lifetime storms of adults with ADHD. We're living in a world where anxiety,
well, it's multiplying fast, and it's multiplying in ways that we can't predict. And so all of that's going to tweak our survival instinct. And so that internal restlessness, which is a natural component of adult ADHD because of the underactive nature of the prefrontal cortex and the hiccups that happen in the active working memory center, those things just produce this sense of angst and restlessness. So when we get societal anxiety, fears, political, climate, you name it, I don't care where it comes from. If you don't learn to manage it, it'll manage you. And when it manages you, it shuts you down. You're going to go into fight, flight, or freeze, fawn. You're going to do something, that's going to be way out of balance with who you want to be.
You're going to act from a dysregulated place.
Absolutely. But the reality is about dysregulation with the human being, that's a natural course. That's a natural state from time to time.
Yeah.
Go out of balance, come into balance. It's not a static balance. It's a dynamic balance.
So we don't need to be scared of dysregulation because it is a part of the human condition.
Yes.
To be dysregulated.
Correct. So being afraid of it is kind of like feeding the fear of the fear. It's like, why would you be afraid of something that's natural?
We're going to be dysregulated. Let's plan for it.
Right, and let's know, because really what we're looking for, which is what we're going to begin, a lot of what we're talking about today is resilience. How do you have that neuroplasticity, flexibility in your mind to know that, I almost, fell off that curb, or this could have happened, or that could have happened, but it didn't. And so I spike on my my sense of anxiety or my sense of fear, but you want that, your body will naturally bring that back to baseline. That's called homeostasis. The body in its natural resting state balances itself on its own. You don't have to do anything.
That's the parasympathetic nervous system?
Correct.
But there's ways we can
exercise that.
Yeah.
We can work with it in a way that helps us to understand where on that spectrum are we, and certainly within ADHD-related issues of the emotional and mental stress that are going to throw us out of balance more often, more dynamically, more intensely. I'm absolutely convinced, My wife tells me, I talk about how many years I've been doing this, but not as an ego statement.
How many years have you been doing this?
35 years.
You got 35 years of experience, clinical experience.
Of 99% of my work is working with ADHD.
Yeah.
That's it.
So you're an authority on this.
I'm an authority, but it's a strange little space to be in, because if you're a professional clinician who's treated nothing but one condition, first of all, you're at a high risk for what? Seeing it in everybody.
Yeah.
The bias effect. which
Yeah.
I've done with supervision and all these other things.
And you also have ADHD, so
Correct.
you like see people in your own
Yes.
image.
Correct. So what do I have to learn to navigate? I have to learn to navigate balance. I have to learn to navigate those perspectives. But because I've sat in front of this, and with the wonderful name of your podcast, Phails, I failed abjectly my clients in many other ways for the first good 15, 20 years of my career. That was not on purpose. It was not directed. It wasn't meaningful. It was inadvertent. I didn't want those things to happen.
Right.
Okay.
You had the best intention.
Correct.
You just lacked. You were building experience. You were building your own models for what this is you're treating.
And I was building them because I had to, because I was in pain and other people were in pain and we couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit. If you guys want to know more about that, go back and watch the 5 questions and the life story where you talk about the kiddo that you met.
Right.
And how he did the memory game,
the memory game.
like photographic memory, and you realize there was so much value and there was so much going on in there that we didn't understand.
Right. And so in that space, one of the stories I didn't tell in that first one, I believe, is how I stumbled on my own diagnosis of ADHD, which was intriguing because, I grew up, if you read Focus Forward, I grew up with a closed head injury, unfortunately. At 4 years old, I thought, that's where my learning issues came from. But, it was in 1996, I had been treating adults with ADD for several years, and I was in the field for about 6 years treating ADD already. And I took a computerized test for visual and auditory attention that I was going to buy to help diagnose the condition. And I was taking the training for that, and the psychologist, God, I'm just blanking his name, but it'll come back. See, there's the active working memory hiccup. It just occurred.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what
it'll
happened
come
then?
back.
So then you were taking this?
I was taking this test, and I couldn't do it in front of 60 other psychologists. I was the one who raised my hand. I'm like, hey, I'll take this test. Watch me. I'll nail this. And I kept missing targets on the test. And he's looking at me going, oh, he's pretending to be ADD. Isn't that funny?
He thought you were pretending to be ADHD?
3 months later, I see him at a national conference.
It's like, I wasn't pretending.
I wasn't pretending. Here are my scores. And he's like, wow.
You got ADD. Or it was ADD back then, right?
It was. Well, actually, it just become ADHD.
Okay.
Because we wanted to try to keep it all into one pocket with 3 different types, right? Hyperactive, impulsive, inattentive, and combined types. So I'm a combined type of ADD. I'm severe, but I stumbled on it.
You and me both. I'm a
this.
combined type as well.
Right.
It's pretty severe.
Right. So we're talking about, thriving and resilience and those kind of things today. And what I was saying here just a touch earlier is that I'm absolutely convinced after 35 years of sitting in front of this, resilience and resource are your key elements to manage the stress of this. You can strategize yourself to the end of the day. You can take medications. You can understand and educate yourself about it. And all those are meaningful. I don't think they affect the core foundation.
Resilience and resourcing.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about what does resilience mean within this context?
Right. So resilience is something that is going to stay strong or rebound or have some sense of strength when you push on it. Okay. It's got some strength to it.
Yeah.
So resilience in this case, from an ADD point of view, is I have anxiety. I have internal restlessness. I'm getting ready to do a conference in the fall. I'm nervous about it. That's not going to go away. How do I live within it and still be an expert in ADHD and treat the clients and do everything that I do?
With a persistent or just like a state of anxiety or a little bit of...
So I have to have resilience. I have to have some strength of flexibility that I don't get... I go out of balance, but I don't get completely thrown out of balance.
Kind of, when I think of this, I think of 2 things. First, I think of, I went on a bike ride before we met today.
Right.
And I thought of this hill, a long hill, and I need to have resilience to get up to the top of that hill.
Right.
My legs start burning, and I'm like, these legs are going to burn.
Correct.
I'm still going up this hill.
Right. And in fact, it's your body's natural reaction that they're burning for good reason.
Because it's hard.
And it tells you that your muscles are working and it's producing certain acids and other things. Okay.
And when you have a big conference coming up,
right,
and when you need to prepare for that, and you you think about wanting to help folks and provide value to a lot of people's lives and to show up in a way
Yep.
that's in alignment with your values and your integrity.
And I want to teach people things.
Your
I want
leg's
them
gonna
walk
burn.
right. And so it's not going to go away. And so knowing that and having the resilience, so the stick-to-itiveness, those kind of things. And when you talk about resilience, though, Phil, we can get resilience from a sense of fear, from a sense of forcing ourselves into something, kind of an adrenal response of things. It's not real good for us to drop into that space that I have to force myself into a pocket.
Forcing yourself into
having to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's setting off that survival instinct to fight, flight, or freeze. Or
you want to do it. You want to do it through a passion and excitement. Is this kind of like
awareness?
This is where the study or the research around stress, when in context, impacts its results on your body. Like I'll explain that a little bit. Like if you're on a roller coaster, that's stressful. You have the same kind of stress response when you're top of a roller coaster and you're going down, but your perception of that event is yay. Woo! But if you take that same stress and put it in the context of, say, I don't know, someone robbing you or this other thing, it's very stressful. That can actually shut down parts of your body that are really important for survival.
Right. And so you've got eustress on the roller coaster. You have distress on a fear cycle. So when you're in resilience, a lot of resilience is about consciousness. Where am I? What am I going through? My legs are burning. I know that's a part of this. The top of the hill will pass.
The stories you tell yourself about your experience.
Which comes down to relationship with yourself.
And is that in the resource area? Is that where we start to kind of transition to resourcing?
Yes. And so the transition to resourcing starts with the relationship with self. And if you look at adult ADHD and the stress and everything that spins off of it, the vast majority of people with ADHD, the resource or the relationship with themselves, I'm sorry, it just sucks, or it's difficult, or it's constantly a berating, or it's constantly trying to look outside of themselves for help. And someone help me fix this because whatever I've done isn't working.
So I've heard negative self-talk.
Yes.
I heard external referencing.
Yes.
And
someone else fix it for me. It's a fix-it syndrome.
Some kind of like the world's going to
Nirvana, magic bullet, someone give me something to make this go away. Well, it's not going away.
I want that.
Well, we want it. But the reality is that's a pie in the sky, so to speak.
Yeah, you've got to do it yourself.
Everyone,
You got to wake up. You got to put your pants on.
But if you look at the wanting it from a resource point of view, that becomes what? Visioning. I'm going to see where I'm going, and I'm going to focus on that future.
Right.
And I'm going to know that there is a growth period in there that is, quote unquote, hard.
That's failure.
Yes.
That's the Phails. You're saying setting goals and then visualizing. I did an interview with this bodybuilder, and the second one we did where we did the follow-up, a lot of it was mindset and setting goals. And we like paired the goals with an emotion and we made the goals just like, it was like visualization techniques.
Correct. And those things work. And they work, guess what? When you're connected to yourself and your brain's in balance and you're operating in a way that's meaningful for your mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
Okay? When you're scared and constantly shut down and don't know who you are and you're afraid to find out who you are because you've always failed, you're in a position where you're locked in your own sense of self. And it's horrible. It's really sad to see people locked in themselves and not know how to get out.
When you're locked in yourself, you're not here now. You're not in the present moment meeting it with, I don't know, excitement.
No, because you're trying to analyze it and run away from it and control it and do all the things that are defense mechanisms in the brain, but you're not present to it.
You're in the past, you're in the future.
And what's so sad is that you miss the connectivity and the goodness that comes from that moment.
Yeah.
You know, the pleasure of the roller coaster, the pleasure of your legs burning going uphill, knowing that it's going to be over.
Yeah.
You know, but you miss it.
Well, you can have a relationship with that sensation of, I'm getting stronger.
Absolutely.
I'm getting stronger through this experience.
Correct.
And then it's it's a part of a process of growth and building.
Right. And so as my training coach was telling me here last week, it's the courage to be uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, we're both doing strength training.
Right.
You're still doing that?
Absolutely.
What is it?
I'm doing it once a week right now, but I'm exercising anywhere from 5 to 6 times a week. And I'm absolutely practicing what I preach and what I call my decathlon approach to ADHD.
What's your exercise like? What are you doing?
So the decathlon approach on the ADHD model for exercise to me is to have 10 different things you could do at any given time so that your interest can grab any of them.
Okay. Yeah.
So I can do yoga. I can run on the green belt. I can do landscaping. I can do swimming. I can do strength training. I can do walking. I can do running. I can do biking. That's 8. I'm sure there's a couple.
You said
more
landscaping in there. That sounded like a chore.
For fun. Dude, I washed the front of my house last week, and it looks like a brand new house.
With like a pressure washer?
Oh, yeah. It's not a fun, boy, pressure
That does
washer.
sound like fun.
But it was planned. And so I was making sure I had enough water and electrolytes. My wife was bringing me snacks every hour or so I kept my fuel up.
And it's exercise for sure.
Right. Oh, my God.
You mow the yard anytime
5 hours.
after like in between,
Sure.
11 and 7 in the afternoon, and you're getting heat.
Right. So, the whole idea of exercise, all right, and the decathlon approach is a resource. That's on the resourcing, thriving side of ADHD. But if you've always viewed exercise as hard or something's wrong with me, then there's a problem there. Because if you look at, so I grew up in the high school sports days where coaches felt like you had to get sick, and you had to throw up if you were exercising hard enough. Now you're really doing it, son. It was the worst way to exercise in the world.
They did that?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I don't think we should throw up when we're exercising.
No, I shouldn't either. Let's go run 40-yard sprints until someone pukes. And then when someone pukes, it's over. And I'm like, this is insane.
I think we were just mean to people back in the day.
We just didn't know.
We didn't know.
That was
like tough and you're working hard if you throw up.
Right. And so the reality now is listen to your body.
Yeah.
Know what works best for me.
Yeah.
I can do workouts and exercise with the best of them because I know who I am, and how I work.
So this is the first resource we're sharing with everybody is the decathlon approach to movement.
Exactly.
And it comes in a context or a lifestyle where you're incorporating movement into your daily life.
Absolutely.
You have 10 exercises. You listed 8, but I think your working memory might be showing up for those last 2.
Oh, yeah.
So you have 10 exercises that you could pull every day.
Hot yoga is another exercise.
Yeah, that's 9.
Different from exercise.
He still has one to go.
I got one more. It's coming. Don't you worry.
But he already said yoga. Anyway, you have 10 exercises that you could pull out of a grab bag at any time, and it lets your attention kind of have diversity.
Yes.
It lets you have
choice.
Yeah, choice.
It lets you have an interest level that matches wherever you are at any given time. One of our biggest issues with exercise or those kind of things is it gets boring, it's routine, or it's hard, or I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Okay. Versus, rowing. There's another exercise.
That's 10. He's gotten to 10, y'all. If you want, think of right now 10 exercises that you could pull up and put them in the comments. Share your 10 exercises with us.
Right.
If I thought of 10 exercises, I'm going to do it real quick.
Okay, now we got 11. Paddleboarding.
Oh, he's got 11 now. I've got cycling.
Yep.
I've got hiking.
Yep.
I've got rock climbing.
Yep.
I've got, I do these workout groups.
Right.
These like at the gym.
High intensity workouts.
They're high intensity workout groups. I do yoga.
Yep.
That's 5. I also do landscaping.
6.
I could mow the yard. That's for sure. I walk my dog Peppermint. So dog walking.
Great name. Dog walking. Absolutely.
That's on the list. And so I need 3 more. Can I put doing the dishes on the list? I don't know if that's a workout. Let's see.
You have to get your heart rate up for that one over meditation.
I'd have to be doing them real ferociously. Let's see. I'm going to keep pondering on the last three.
Phil's got 3 more, folks. Here we go. They're coming.
They're coming. But I've got 7 just right off the bat. I think y'all could think about, 10. Put them in the comments. Share with us. What are you guys doing for your decathlon?
Because if you look at exercise as one of the components in managing ADHD long term, it's critical.
Movement?
Movement, understanding my body needs work. Okay, we are such a sedentary society that sits for our jobs, that sits for our work.
Not over here.
We're
both
either.
here in a journey. And mine started a little bit with you when you were talking about working with a strength trainer and you were talking about some other stuff. And I'm on a journey of physical fitness now.
Right.
I've made a commitment. That's the word. A commitment to reducing my body weight, but also the fat and all that stuff, because I want to be here for a long time for my kids.
Right.
I want to be able to do anything that this adventure of a life brings forward. And I also think it's great medicine for my neurodivergence.
Right. So, if you look at this longevity for living, there is so much more movement around that, and really looking at what are the factors that are going to help you get there. And certainly exercise and movement are one of the top pieces.
Yeah.
Drinking water is another one, by the way.
Drinking water, getting a lot of sleep. And these go hand in hand. If you exercise more, you'll sleep more.
Absolutely.
Or sleep
and you'll
better.
sleep better.
Yeah. Let's see. I want to think with you. I want to play a little game.
Okay.
Because I think one part of introducing movement into your life is making it like interwoven into the decisions you make.
Correct.
So let's think of basic things that you could do to do more movement. I'll just throw out the first one. You could always park at the last row at the grocery store. I don't know if you guys are like me. I don't know if you're like me, James. I want that VIP spot.
Yep.
I want the closest spot to the grocery store that I can find.
Right.
Because I feel like that makes me some grocery store parking lot winner.
Right. Right.
But you could park at the last one, the furthest from the grocery store, and you could not only get the walk there and back, but on the way back you could do some
bicep
curls with them groceries, baby.
Yep. I think about it all the time when I carry my groceries in. So here's another one. Okay, you want to talk to a friend on the phone. Put your headphones in and start walking.
Go for a walk.
You go for a walk and talk is what I call. It's a wonderful way to interact and connect with people. But you want to add to that, I go for a walk and talk on the Greenbelt. Now I have to pay attention where I'm walking. It's more of a hike. It's not just a walk and talk. You want to do something different than that, then you can stop, at a rock and do some tricep curls, from the back of kind of pushing yourself up.
And you know what, guys? Y'all are already pacing around the house when you're talking anyway.
Yes.
Don't even lie. We know you're doing it.
Right.
You're pacing around your house. Go outside.
Right. Absolutely get outside.
Or pace around the house. There's nothing wrong with that either. You're moving. But if it's not 2 p.m. in Texas in the summertime, you can walk outside and it's not 110 heat.
Right.
And even if it is hotter, get that movement. Get that.
Well, but even the hot, sweaty stuff for a short period of time, knowing what you're doing is good for your body to sweat. It's good to feel that. It's why I power washed my house for 5 hours. But I did it in a way that was very dialed in, and cleaning the windows so it sparkles, and all that is pleasurable.
And you're also you're tending to your nest.
Right.
You're like making your life. That's when I would do like recontextualize your chores as movement exercises, and also as things that just make your life better.
Right. But a lot of what we're talking about there on this resource end comes into the pleasure principle for your lives. Where do you find those pleasures in? And so for me, this whole idea of nesting and loving my home, I use this for sleep regarding pillows and sheets and kind of how I sleep and where I go to sleep and how I nap. And I could talk about sleep for days, about how the importance of it is, not just for ADHD, but for everyone. I would consider myself a professional sleeper now.
You're a professional sleeper?
That's what I would call it.
Okay, so let's get into another resource. Let's talk about sleeping for a little bit.
Do
you do naps?
Oh my God, do I do naps? It's ludicrous if you don't do naps. So here's a fun fact.
You're pro nap.
Oh, dude.
Okay, fact me.
Okay, here's the fact.
Look out, you guys.
We are the only mammal on the planet that does not take naps consistently.
We are?
Yes, we are. Watch every animal. Watch your dog. Nap like your dog.
My dog's probably napping right now.
Yes, they are. Okay, why are they napping? Because it's resourcing. Okay, so this whole sleep thing started for me 15, 20 years ago. There's a beautiful book out there called Take a Nap, Change Your Life. It's the sleep physiology in the body and the brain on how sleeping works and how napping works. So this is a psychologist, or she may be a PhD or a MD, and I can't think of her name immediately. We can get it in the show notes, but it's one of my favorite books. Mm-hmm. And so essentially we have 2 circadian rhythms in our body. One starts from 12 a.m. at night to 12 p.m. and then one 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. Okay?
Okay.
And so the reality is the tiredness you feel in the early afternoon has nothing to do with what you ate for lunch. It has to do with your second circadian rhythm turning on, and your body needs to rest for a short period of time, i.e. the siesta.
7 hours after waking. Siesta is siete.
Yes.
I read about this in Dan Pink's book, I think, called When.
Okay.
And he talks about the Nappuccino.
Yes.
Have you heard of the
it.
Nappuccino?
No, I love it. The Nappuccino. That's a wonderful, what a great term.
There's another resource, y'all. I don't caffeine.
Okay. I don't either anymore.
But if you caffeine, he says, you sleep for 20 minutes.
Right.
He says, do not sleep.
Right.
You don't want your REM. Because if you go too deep into sleep, it's harder to bounce back into a wakeful state.
Correct. That's accurate.
So he says sleep for 20 minutes. And he says if you're a coffee drinker, which I'm not, which James is not, but if you guys are, there's a lot of coffee drinkers out there. You drink coffee before you go to sleep because that caffeine takes about 20 minutes to take effect.
Wow.
So you'll sleep for 20 minutes and it will help springboard you back from that sleep state to a wakeful state.
Okay, so that's one way to dial it in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Other ways to look at on the second circadian rhythm starting is to look at that your sleep cycling on the second circadian rhythm is 45 minutes. You'll go through a full sleep cycle. At night when you're sleeping, you go through full cycles in 90 minutes. So if you want to play a little game at night when you're sleeping, upon waking, I don't use alarm clocks anymore unless I'm going to the airport.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a clock in my head, and 98% of the time I can wake up within 1 to 2 minutes of when I set my clock, I'm going to wake up.
I haven't used an alarm clock in a long time. This morning I went on that bike ride. It's a 7 a.m. bike ride. And I didn't even know if I was going to go because I thought our interview's at 10.
Right.
If we get a couple flats on this group ride, I'm late.
Right.
And then but my body woke me up at 6:25 and
it's
said,
time to go ride.
It's time to go ride.
And so your body starts to help you help itself.
It knows when you're doing stuff.
Absolutely.
How does that work?
Well, how does your heart rate work?
Yeah.
How does your blood pressure work? I mean, these are the miracles of the body, meaning that there's a physiology working in our body that's so behind the scenes that if you trust it, understand it, guide it, engage with it, it takes care of itself.
So you were talking about the 90-minute nighttime
sleep cycle. And one of the things in this book, Take a Nap, Change Your Life, is the idea that you wake up on one of those junctures. So you're waking up at 6 hours. So they're 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9 hours of sleep. And if you're waking up at those junctures, say 6 hours or 7.5 hours, your body pops out of sleep easier because you're likely in a dream state or you're in one of those transition states. So it's easier to wake up. You don't feel so. If you wake up from sleep or even a nap and you've got a lot of cobwebs and it's hard to kind of get oriented, you woke up in a deep sleep.
Out of cycle.
Yes.
So when I think of this cycle, I'm thinking, so sleep has a depth.
Yes.
You can be sleeping lightly, which means you might know what's going on in the
Yep.
room. You might
Yep.
be you're at a shallow level
Correct.
of sleep. And then there's also a deep sleep,
Yes.
which is that REM.
Yes, you'll have some REM in there, but you'll have a lot of physical repair on the body. You'll have a very deep connection to yourself.
Is this yoga nidra? Does yoga nidra
No, yoga
tap
nidra
into that deep
would
sleep?
no, I think it would drop into I don't know a lot of the specific areas of sleep. I know what works for me, and I've read, like I said, this book really worked well for me, and there's a lot of information out there now about sleep. What's the shortest period a person can take a nap and get benefit?
What is that?
2 to 3 minutes.
You can get benefit in 2 to 3 minutes?
Think about this. Have you ever dozed off in a movie or in a conference or while you were doing something and you just need a little rest? Mm-hmm. You watch people, they'll sleep for about 2 or 3 minutes and they'll pop back awake and they'll have a re-energized sense of self. Okay? So you could see me on the side of the road in a parking lot nowadays in the middle of the afternoon because I'm driving somewhere and I don't use caffeine and I don't use refined sugars anymore. So I'll nap for 5 minutes. I'll nap for 6 minutes. Pop open, go right back to where I was. So it's learning how to resource your body. Sleep, napping. I absolutely am a professional napper. So in the afternoon, the book, Take a Nap, Change Your Life, would say it's a 45-minute sleep cycle.
Okay.
So you could sleep for as much as 45 minutes and wake up. I can half that, say about 23 minutes, 20 minutes. I think I've customized, I don't know if customized, but I've really oriented to what my body works for my body. And I nap within the time that I have. So if I've got 13 minutes, if I've got 14 minutes, if I've got 17 minutes.
You'll nap that distance, that
Absolutely.
direction.
I'll say, okay, it's 2:35 right now. I have a client at 3 o'clock. I can nap for 15 minutes. I am going to wake up at 2:35 plus 15 minutes is 2:50, okay?
Yeah.
And I'll set my mind. I'll wake up at 2:50 and I'll look at the clock. It's 2:50. It's 2:51. I'm like, phew. So I take 1 to 2 naps a day. I think it's the healthiest thing in the world. And I think it allows your body to reset naturally and it keeps it off of the stress cycle.
Second resource, we're talking about napping.
Yep.
Talking about sleeping. First is get a good night's sleep.
Yep.
Go to bed. We didn't talk about this, but is there a ritual or routine about sleep? Because I've heard of sleep hygiene. People talk about sleep hygiene.
Correct. And that's been the term now. So sleep hygiene, I say you want to mimic your sleep hygiene to your wake-up hygiene. If you wake up and you take a shower and you brush your teeth and you do all these things and it takes you 30 minutes, you want your sleep hygiene to be about 30 minutes.
Okay.
So I take a very brief shower every night before bed because it washes off my day. Mm-hmm. It might be 30 seconds. It might be a minute. It's not a long-term cleaning shower.
It's like a ritual.
Yes, but it's a reset ritual, so it's a start. And then I will always brush and floss my teeth. I wear contacts, so I have to take care of my contacts. I will clean my face. I always put, I'm 62, and I think my skin looks incredibly good for 62.
You put some moisturizer on that stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
every night.
Moisturize.
Because skin, okay, these are fun facts today. Skin is the largest organ in the body that's alive.
That's right.
And if you don't take care of your skin, you'll know it. And your face is the one that is most exposed most of the time to the elements.
They call it your money maker.
Yes, yes.
Wait, no, shake your money maker, I think, is your bottom. But anyway, forget that. I'm digressing.
But the reality is, particularly for men out there, this is a challenge for them. If they've never had a facial, go get a facial. It'll change your
I've never
world.
had a facial.
Oh, Phil. All right, we're going to have to get Phil a facial, folks.
Phil needs a facial.
If someone's out here who's
Phil fails at facials, y'all.
Okay, you need to get an anesthetician.
An anesthetician.
And you need to interview an anesthetician here. Okay, because they will teach you about your skin health.
Okay, so ritual,
we digress.
Ritual behavior you mirror your nighttime ritual with your wake-up ritual.
Meaning about the time. You're going to do different things in those rituals.
But they're about 30 minutes each.
Correct. Mine are about 30 minutes. And so, but the reality is, for us as humans, if you're out in the sunlight in a reasonable amount, okay, you're going to be creating serotonin throughout the day, which is a nice mood regulator. Serotonin turns to melatonin, as the sun goes down at night, melatonin is a natural sleep agent. So everyone's going to have a natural tiredness somewhere between, I believe, in the 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Time rate.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to naturally feel tired. Your body wants to go to bed.
Right.
Okay? That's the best time to go to bed. If I throw that off by an hour and a half or so, you can throw that into an adrenal cortisol cycle where the body's going to take another 2 to 3 hours to deal with that. And it's a horrible deal for adults with ADD, because adults with ADD get into the sleep trap, is what I call it. And the sleep trap is, okay, I may be a little tired, but I run past it, or I get on video games, or I do something, and I pop myself into this hyper cycle where I don't feel like I need to go to sleep, and then suddenly I'm awake till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and you destroy your night's sleep and you destroy your next day because you didn't get the rest you needed.
And it's almost like you missed that train.
Yes.
Like your body's
Yes.
going to tell you, this gets into body awareness.
Yes, it does.
Your body's going to say, hey, I think it's about bedtime for us. And if you miss that train, it can throw off your whole night.
Yes.
So when your energy starts to dip, when you start to maybe start yawning, I don't know.
Yawning, dipping, any of those things are parts of it. I just start slowing down for the day.
Yeah.
But one of the other ADD sleep traps is that the world for people with ADHD gets quiet around them at night from a distractions point of view. People aren't calling me. I'm not required to do stuff. So suddenly my mind can quiet down from all the chaos potentially around it. And so I feel good about that. And I want to have that time. I want to relish in it. I want to do something finally for me.
Mm-hmm.
So where do I find that time?
Early in the morning?
Yes.
Yeah, you're waking up at 4 still, right?
4, 4:30, 5, 5:30. But I was up this morning. I woke up with some positive stress at 3 a.m. around my conference coming up and some thoughts I was having in this podcast today, and I couldn't go back to sleep in about 10 or 15 minutes, which I think if you don't go to sleep for 10 or 15 minutes and you're awake at night, get up. Do a meditative, some kind of ritual to pull you back into that sleep cycling. Don't turn the TV on.
So if you wake up and it seems like going back to bed isn't readily available, you're suggesting get all the way up and do something.
That's meditative and ritualistic in a calming, centering realm. So what did I do this morning at 3 a.m.? Actually, it was from, it's about 3 to 4 a.m.
You pressure wash the front of the house.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. I would have pissed my neighbors off. But it probably would have crossed my mind at some point. No, I meditated. I opened my back doors. I opened the screen doors. I could hear my fountain. I could hear the cicadas of when the Texas heat, and those kind of things.
Oh, man.
And how long do I meditate? I don't put a timer on it. I meditate until I'm done, until I feel myself starting to rest back into sleep, and my thoughts have drained themselves. I just let my thoughts drain. It's like just let them sift. Keep going. Don't grab them. Sometimes when I'm doing that, I will come across insights. I'll come across ideas or answers to things. So I may write something down briefly. Remember this is a good idea on that.
Noting.
But I don't attach to it.
Did you learn some of this from David Cuthrell?
Yes. Some of that, or he and I teaching each other about those things. He and I have known each other for 20 years. And
Dave's been on the show. You guys
Dave's
go watch
great.
Dave Cuthrell's show on mindfulness meditation.
Oh my God. And mindfulness meditation for the ADHD.
And that's what we're talking
well.
about here.
Yes,
Mindfulness meditation.
Yes, we are.
You're sitting down, eyes closed, most likely, or softened gaze.
Yes.
You're noticing thoughts popping into your mind.
Yep.
You might even go down the rabbit hole on one. But once you notice, hey, I'm in a thought.
Then you let it go.
You let it go.
And like last night, I heard 2 sirens go off, and I heard them, and I heard them stop. And what do I do with sirens at night? I don't think bad thoughts. I think nurturing thoughts. I think someone who needs help is getting help right now. And that's a wonderful thing. So if you ever want a way to reorder what you think about sirens and the police and everything, someone's getting help.
Reframing.
Yeah, absolutely. But do that right in the moment and it just dissipates.
So we're talking about sleep as a resource. We talked about during the day sleep, about somewhere around 20. It could be as little as 2 minutes.
Yep.
You can get value from 2-minute nap. It can be as much as like 45 minutes, it sounds like, to do
Yes.
one of those day cycles.
Right. But I also think that it's good for you to kind of feel your body out on any given day. I might take a 17-minute nap or a 23-minute nap. But to me, here's the ADD piece. When I'm doing that, it's interesting to me. It's a little bit like, oh, will it be a 23-minute nap today or a 17-minute nap today? Or what do I have time? So it keeps me intrigued by it. That's a thriving aspect of ADD, is to be intrigued and interested in my life in such a personalized, customized way, in this case, in regards to napping and sleep.
Yeah, that nap's kind of exciting right now.
I'm telling you, because it turns you on. If you can get that intrigue turned on in a personal way, you know us, our hyperdrive is just like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is an adventure.
I want to go for a nap.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to try this. Now, remember, if you haven't napped for a very long time or you feel like you can't nap or it's hard to calm down, it's okay to just close your eyes and rest. Because even resting for 5, 10, 15 minutes and letting thoughts just go by and you don't really feel like you go to sleep, you will beginning to train your body, okay, into that nap cycling space to go to sleep. A lot of people who will meditate or will take a nap, or particularly with meditation, they'll go, well, I meditate and I fall asleep. And they're like, what's
fine.
that mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, your body needed to sleep.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay? Your
I
body.
think we live in a culture where napping hasn't been as championed.
No, it hasn't been understood. And
Latin America, they got the siesta thing.
because they understand a day is divided into two parts. You have the first part of the day and you have the second part of the day.
Like when I was in Spain or whenever you go, you try to get lunch somewhere. Everything closes down
Right.
because they go back
Right.
to be with their family,
Yes.
to take naps, or just to do
Yes.
life stuff.
Yes.
Whatever they want to do.
And then they come back and they have their
come
second
back.
day.
And
have the
they're
second
up
half of the
later.
day. Right. Right, but they can be naturally up later because of how they cycle their days.
Yeah.
So, but if we complete the thoughts on the sleep hygiene at night, it's really, really important to let your body have that ritual to help pull you into sleep. Okay. So I'm going to give you one of my favorite little tools, okay, and strategies for going to sleep at night if you have ADD. Okay, because we think about everything but sleeping. So one of the things we don't really focus on regarding sleep and ADD is that when you start to go to sleep, your mind's going to think about other things. I'm going to get distracted.
Rumination.
Yes.
That's what we call it.
Okay. But it's the mind's active. Well, it was active during the day. So it's natural. So how do I calm that active mind in a way that's meaningful? Of course, I've got 10 or 15 or 20 strategies that I use on any given basis. One of my favorite ones is in Focus Forward. I talk a lot about the mind palace, or the emotional safe place, a place in your mind's eye. So if you can imagine things in your mind's eye, create a sleep environment in your mind's eye. The best thing you could ever imagine. I'm sleeping in the woods. I'm in a hammock. I'm in a beautiful little cabin on the
We're
beach.
talking visualization.
Absolutely. And using your imagination, that's a whole other podcast. The imagination is a powerful tool.
Absolutely.
So
And
create.
it's an aspect of reframing too.
Absolutely.
It's visualization, it's reframing, it's
But it's exercising the resource called imagination. It's how we just, we throw imagination out to the wind of it's brainstorming and daydreaming and all this. I'm like, no, it's a powerful mental health tool.
yeah, and you're suggesting or advocating for us using it
Yes.
to create a safe space around our sleep.
Correct. And in this case, you create a sleep environment in your mind's eye. So in your imagination, you go to sleep in your mind's eye imagination, and you go to sleep in your physical bed. So it's a tether that pulls you down into sleep because it gives it something to focus on.
Focusing forward.
Yes, and it's beautiful. I've used it in many, many ways. I'm 99% of my sleep now, I'm asleep within 2 to 3 minutes. I know exactly the covers I want. I know the pillows I want. I sleep with a stuffed dog.
What's his name?
Xavier, of course.
Stuffed dog.
You know,
Xavier's
brown
in
and
the
white,
bed.
spotted stuffed dog that's got these weighted feet on it. You know, these beanbag kind of dog feet.
Yeah.
That just you can hug on.
Are you guys visualizing
Yeah,
this?
come on,
James?
Everyone is
With
just,
Xavier?
I know, but I'm just like, listen, stuffed animals are not just for children anymore.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
So that whole idea of nurturing myself, of connection to myself. So I'm a real geek when it comes to pillows. I use a U-shaped pillow. That's because I'm a side sleeper. It supports my back. It lets my neck get where it needs to be. It supports my head. I've discovered this about a year ago. Oh my God, I'm like in heaven with my pillow right now.
Okay. That's
So-
sleep, our second resource.
dude,
We've talked
sleep.
a lot about sleep.
We have.
I want to go to the next resource,
Go.
or just another resource. When we were working together, and we talked about this a little bit ahead of time, because I wanted you to kind of take us through and discuss tapping. But you said, in the you said, man, this might be a spicy one to talk about with folks, because tapping can...
It can be a trauma desensitization technique, meaning that you're dealing with something that could be very emotionally disruptive for you. Could be resourcing from a calming, centering point of view. But as a professional counseling therapist who has specialized in trauma as well for 30 years, I'm just very judicious and cautious about someone's trauma history, because it's so personal. And it can be so wonderfully healed and managed. But if you're not in the right environment and you open up something too fast and you're not supported in that kind of trauma processing, it can result in re-traumatization, which means I got opened up in an emotional event.
And it wasn't calm.
supported.
You didn't have a set and setting that was conducive to...
I just wasn't supported well enough. All right, so the story I'll tell about that is a self-help program that I went through back in the 80s. And they were beautiful at opening your history of emotional and mental stress and all up. But the degree of support that anyone would have needed in these workshops when you open this up, it just wasn't available.
there. So they get re-traumatized because they're
you're
open.
Because you're shut back down from a point of view that says, oh, I can't trust this again. I didn't get the help. Now, this is somewhat of an extreme viewpoint. I agree. Okay, this doesn't happen to everyone.
Yeah.
I just know that as a professional counselor that has dealt with horrifically traumatic events in people's lives, I just don't take the risk of opening traumas up with someone who's been through things, because yes, it can be healing, and yes, it can be resourcing. It can also, it can be possibly not the most helpful thing to do. So when we talk about tapping,
this is Basil Vanderkopf. Is he one of the people that champions this?
well, he doesn't champion tapping. He's championing EMDR. So EMDR is another desensitization.
Okay.
So we can talk about desensitization.
But it has some bilateral stimulation when we do it, because I remember when we did it, we did...
Yes, it does. So let's talk about what those both are.
Okay.
EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, brought to the world by a psychologist, may she rest in peace, Francine Shapiro, who passed away about maybe 10 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But the last book that she wrote, Getting Past Your Past, about EMDR, was beautifully done, and really does teach you to understand about how to work with it yourself and those kinds of things. With a therapist, it's a different model of training.
Yeah.
So EMDR is a trained model. Bessel van der Kolk has written enormously successful books about the body keeps the score.
Yeah, that's his big one.
That's his big one. And basically, your body doesn't lie, and it keeps the score by embedding those memories and all the muscle fascia and the nerve endings and different parts of your body.
Of trauma.
Absolutely.
Of events that have occurred in your life.
Right. So
stored.
EMDR, to me, is a professional technique that can have a self-taught or a self-use, because it has a degree of bilateral stimulation. The eye movement of EMDR is the rapid eye movement dream sleep pattern that you naturally go through at night. Everyone, when we dream at night, your eyes go back and forth rapidly. It crosses the corpus callosum. We believe, in my opinion, from what I've understood with sleep, two main arenas I watch for people with sleep regarding dreaming. You're downloading information into long-term memory. So it's a clearing the cache of the computer of your active working memory during the day, and it absolutely needs to happen. We know we need to dream. You do 75% of your dreaming and the last 25% of your sleep cycling. So you do most of your dreaming toward the end of that. Dreams also process out emotional and mental stress. So much like talking like we're doing or relating or journaling, it's a way of purging the body's emotional and mental stress. EMDR mimics that rapid eye movement dream sleep process connected with a therapeutic model of understanding how trauma layers, how to desensitize it using this technique, and how to help support people go through that trauma and balance themselves as they're doing it. So the EMDR is a crossing of left and right hemisphere. You can cross your left and right hemispheres by simply tapping on opposite shoulders. Okay,
Yeah.
and crossing from a feeling state. And it can be helpful to calm and center yourself. That's not EMDR. EMDR is a much more in-depth clinical technique that takes someone all the way through the trauma from desensitizing it to re-engaging a resource of what you would want to put there instead. Okay? So you want to put a belief system back. And the idea of trauma is that in EMDR is if you go dig a hole out in your front yard and you don't put anything else in that hole, it's going to fill back up with dirt again. So you want to plant something back in when you desensitize your trauma or go through it with something you want, something you envision otherwise, something now that is more important to you. So that's a really basic idea of EMDR. There's some great training out there on it. But you were talking about EFT, which is the emotional freedom technique.
That's tapping.
Correct.
Is EFT.
Correct.
Emotional freedom technique.
And
freedom, y'all. That's what we're looking for.
So EFT was identified and developed by a engineer in the 90s. And I'm going to blank his name, but it also centered around a product and a technique called thought field therapy. This is back in the 90s. So EFT as an emotional freedom technique was put out onto the market as an open source therapy.
Open source.
Yes, open source, much like you would have
Like self-help.
Right, like Linux systems on computers.
Yeah, we could just go get it. We don't have to pay anybody. We just use it.
Right, and they did that. So with this tapping technique that was out there, as I understood the story, his daughter, who became a psychologist, wanted to certify that EFT for a trauma-related work, and she worked with the Energy Psychology Association out of California and did full research studies on post-traumatic stress to use EFT as a valid trauma desensitization technique, and it works beautifully. I use it in practice all the time. I use it virtually.
We did it. You
Correct.
showed me.
So the tapping piece you can learn as what I call a back pocket therapy, something you can take with you on the go anytime to calm and recenter yourself.
Can we do a little bit of it?
Sure.
Let's do a little bit of it, but I want y'all to remember the disclaimer.
Right.
Right? This isn't your therapy session. We're going to teach you kind of how to do it, or James is going to teach us how to do it. But if you've got trauma, we want you to go find a professional. We want you to...
Well, if you've got a serious history of trauma, you want to find a professional that can help you navigate and walk you through this. EFT is an emotional freedom technique. You can go and get the tapping techniques. And essentially, as I understand EFT, it is a therapy.
You don't have to go get them. We're going to do them right now.
Yeah, but but this is a good, not qualifier, but a good piece to understand on what it is. It's a therapeutic tapping technique that activates different acupuncture sensation points on the body.
Acupuncture sensation points.
Okay. That will help to release distress.
Release distress. Okay.
So they're acupuncture points that can release distress on the body, as I understand them. And so I teach them. There's a basic 7 tapping points. And if you look at EFT at a deeper model, it has points that you can tap on the fingers, you can use sound, you can use humming, you can use number counting, because and I'm not going to teach that here today, that's a deeper technique, but if you think about trauma layers in different ways for different reasons. And so it's getting at all those channels is what it's
different layers, a different technique for a different layer of trauma.
Correct. So the therapeutic tapping technique that you can learn simply is, first of all, there are 7 points on the body. as I understand it, and we'll see if my counting was right.
Okay.
The first one is on top of the head.
Y'all, tap the top of your head now.
Okay, so the top of your head, you have your top of your ears. It's called your baby point. It's
Right
where
here at the top, there's
yes.
a little point.
Right. And if you ever need to calm yourself down in a very difficult situation,
Do you ever like rub your belly at the same
well,
time?
that would be more of a oh yeah, that's a Three Stooges move.
Yeah.
So that's a curly move.
This is serious stuff, though. I'm being silly, but this is a serious technique.
For this is something, and you don't tap hard.
You don't.
When we're talking about nerve endings, we're talking about touch your finger. You can feel it. That's all it needs.
Just sensation of it there.
Correct. You could even hold your hand there. That's going to be helpful from a calming sensation point of view. Mm-hmm. Okay. The second point is on the inside of the eyebrow. And so the inside of the eyebrow, you're tapping gently.
You're getting both of them?
And you can pick one or the other. I don't know that.
When you say inside the eyebrow, you mean kind of in the middle?
Where the eyebrow ends near your nose.
Okay. You do one or the other.
So you start there on either side. The third point is on the edge of the eyebrow and where it ends on the outside. The fourth point is underneath in the eye socket. You don't hit the eye, but you're right below the eye in the eye socket. The fifth point is right underneath the nose, right at the cleft here, that you're tapping right underneath the nose at the top of the lip. The next one is right at the chin cleft, right here at the point here. How many is that? That's 6? I think that's 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6. The seventh one is your collarbone point. So you find your collarbones on either side. You'll have a hollow point, maybe a little closer in. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you can hear that hollow kind of echo. That's the seventh point. There's actually 8 points because the last one is underneath the arm, and it's right where your breast line would be, and it's always sore. There's a lot of lymph nodes that are under there that are sore, and you tap that area. Those 8 points are the basics of EFT, that if you tapped when you were under stress, you would likely feel calmer. Now, if this stress is connected to something much bigger in your life that's been there for a long time, other kind of things, you might activate and not feel quite as calm. Okay, so this is where there's no other qualifier but to say trauma history is something that's very sensitive to me, and that you can continue to tap, and you tap until you feel calmer. Now, there's a lot more to the technique that I'm not necessarily going to go through today, but the basics I want people to have are those 8 points that they can use to feel a sense of connecting with myself, of being able to calm and center myself. And I use EFT on an ongoing basis, and it's a wonderful technique to learn. And the best part about it is that in 1, 2, or 3 sessions, in my opinion, you can learn the basics of it with a therapist who's trained in it.
Yeah.
Okay. And take it with you and use it in areas that are meaningful to you.
You know what I think is good about this is I don't think I can tap my head and be in the past or in the future.
That's a really good point.
Like my attention is going to the sensation, and I'm here now. Correct. I'm feeling the sensation on the top of my head. I'm touching, I'm feeling, and you can do the bilateral. You can go back and forth to this inner one, or a lot of these are have lateral
or bilateral. And so the reality is what? You're staying connected to your body, Phil.
Yeah, you're giving yourself attention.
Right. And you're connecting to yourself in a way that's meaningful. You're nurturing, you're touching yourself. Those kind of things are meaningful.
Yeah.
It's a nurturing kind of, this kind of clasp of hands can feel very compassionate.
When my daughter was in occupational therapy, one of the strategies was the brushing.
Yes.
Brushing her. And I think that was like both, I don't know what the sensation was on her body, but there's also this parent-child bond of, hey, I'm brushing your body. I'm giving you my attention. I'm grooming, sort of like a monkey would groom another monkey.
Well, which is a nurturing, connective point of view. And if you look at massage releases good feeling hormones and chemicals in the body. And so that kind of physical touch that's nurturing is very releasing of things that feel good.
I wish my daughters would let me brush them now.
Yeah, I know.
They're too old now.
Exactly. But
If I asked my 15-year-old if I could dry brush her
yeah,
every day,
no. But guess what? She can do it
she can do it.
because she's got a relationship with herself.
Yeah.
And
All
I've
those
had a
arms
brother who's
down
dry
the neck.
brushed forever. You know,
He
that's
still does it
Absolutely.
himself to himself.
He's in his 60s. He does it every day, every morning.
Oh, wow.
Because it's his ritual. It's his way of nurturing and connecting to himself.
So this has been the third resource we talked about was EFT,
Yes.
emotional freedom technique or tapping. The 8 locations on the body are the top of your head,
Yep.
the inside of your eyebrows, the outside of your eyebrows,
Under the
under
eye.
under your eye sockets,
Above the upper lip.
above the upper lip.
Below the lower lip and the chin cleft.
Mm-hmm.
Then the collarbone point where you hear the hollow.
And then we gave us a bonus 8th one, which is in
Under the
here,
arm.
where you're always sore.
Yep.
Just poke that sore spot.
And again, these are not hard taps. You can just hold your, and I've been able, at times if you're in a meeting and you're stressed out or you're somewhere where tapping's going to look a little strange or weird, it's okay to just hold your finger where your chin is and just rub that point. It's like, oh, interesting, Or it's like you can go and itch your eye and kind of stimulate that one point underneath here. All those things to me, I can do things like, oh, I feel like I've got an itch right there, so I'll stimulate that
You're
point.
kind of doing that acupressure point. Y'all try this and tell us in the comments, reach out. Do you feel more calm?
Yep.
Do you feel more present?
Yes. And understand that if you look at the Energy Psychology Association of California, it is certified EFT. They'll have enormous information about there. And it'll have a lot of self-help and a lot of information on how to direct this for yourself as well. Because this is not something that, again, people are hiding or it's going to cost thousands of dollars to figure out how to do.
It's open source.
Yeah, they want to help people help themselves.
So find information out there. I'm sure there's videos on this. You can also find licensed practitioners or therapists that can guide you.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But try it now and let us know how you feel, if you feel calmer. Absolutely. Okay, so that's the third resource. What do you think? What's another resource?
Resources. You've talked a lot about mindfulness before, and you've had Dave Kuthrow on and talking about mindfulness and ADD. And by the way, he has another 4-week course coming up in September.
Does he?
On mindfulness. And so he is finishing his certification as a mindfulness teacher. And so if anyone, we can put that in the show notes as a link.
Heck yeah.
Because it's a great place to get at a very affordable cost. I think it's like $25.
Is he doing the MBSR?
And he's not doing... He's been trained through the MBSR. But
MBSR is the mindfulness-based stress reduction. That's John Kabat-Zinn's system.
Right.
And I know that he was trained through that. He went to actual retreats.
I'm not sure what his full training is now. It's a 2-year meditation training.
Insight meditation.
It's a very robust. And so anyway, the mindfulness piece is a really important piece, I think, to talk about. I don't know how much we talked about that in our first discussion.
So let's talk about the fourth resource is mindfulness.
Okay. So is mindfulness, what we're talking about is how do you fill your mind with something that's meaningful and nurturing and connective? Okay. If we look at meditation as a skill set to activate mindfulness, that's really how I would talk about it, because people talk about meditation and ADD. To me, the vast majority of people who are trying to teach someone with ADD how to meditate, it's failure. I'm asking you to sit in a chair for 20 minutes and think about nothing.
ADHD person.
It doesn't work. And so, you mean I can meditate because I can walk slowly? You mean I can meditate because I can do Tai Chi?
I remember when I worked in an office, which right now I'm not, when I would go to the bathroom, the journey from my desk to the bathroom had to be the fastest. Mm-hmm. I would just rush there and rush back.
Right.
And when I realized that I could take a slower journey, I could take a mindful journey from my desk to the bathroom, it was kind of hard. And it was like meditation in that I would notice I'm rushing and
Right.
then slow down and then take a controlled, purposeful, intentional like pace.
Right. And that controlled, purposeful, intentional space is, guess what? Connecting to yourself.
And that's mindfulness.
Yes, it is. And so the simplest act of mindfulness is curious observation. You just stop and observe something, and from a curious point of view. And so that curious observation model is pulling the mind into neutral. I talk about it as our minds with ADD are so overactivated, right? It's grabbing our survival instinct, and we can't let go of it. Mindfulness or curious observation pops this out of gear. So when you pop your mind out of gear with this curious observation, it's like, oh, I could do that right now. I can observe that I'm in a podcast with Phails, and he is sitting in a chair and he has a mic in front of him and he's sitting cross-legged.
What this is drawing your attention
Yes.
into the present moment. You cannot observe what's
Correct.
happening right in front of you without being here.
Right.
Your attention
Yes.
is not in your
Yes.
thoughts. It's not on the past or the future. It is right here. James Ochoa is in front of me.
And therefore, give yourself credit for meditating.
Yeah.
Because people are like, well, I don't meditate. I'm like, no, you meditate.
You
all
can
day
meditate
long.
when you're cycling. You
Yes.
can meditate. You can meditate no matter what you're doing.
Which is a mindfulness act, right?
Yeah.
You're filling your mind in this case.
Yeah.
And so then people are like, well, this has been here for decades. All right, rocking in a rocking chair on my porch, with a nice beverage late in the day to calm myself or to just look at the world was a mindfulness act.
Yeah. Let's go back and forth and share some mindfulness acts. I'll share one. I'll start us. In the morning, and I think I learned this from Shauna Shapiro. In the morning, I get up and I tell myself, "Good morning, Philip. I love you." And I think that was a mindfulness act.
My first moment of waking in the morning is one of my favorites. One of the other favorites of mine is going to sleep at night. Because that opening my eyes or closing my eyes tells me I'm alive, I'm still here in this world. And that presence of looking around me, and I immediately focus on gratitude and appreciation.
Yes. Gratitude,
It just starts my day off well.
appreciation. I think those are great.
That's another one that I'll talk about, the gratitude appreciation meter as I talk about it.
As a resource.
As an absolute resource. in my
Okay.
life.
So I've mentioned this throughout our talk today, this idea of visualization and reframing, and that's kind of all throughout this. What are you putting your attention on? Are you putting your attention on loving yourself? Are you putting your attention on, gratitude, appreciation? That's all invigorating. It's all positive. It's uplifting.
Yes.
And we have control over our mindset.
Yes, we do. The challenge is that if our minds have been out of balance, or we've been under stress, or we've had traumatic lives, or it's easier for us to think about negative things.
Yeah.
Many people will say, well, I can't get to appreciation and gratitude. And I say, well, okay, let's start with the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Let's start with the things that are difficult.
Yeah.
And so I have an entirely other perspective called mining the gems of your life history. Okay, so we have an appreciation, gratitude meter, and mining the gems of your life history is a way of looking at the darkness in your life and finding something meaningful from it in the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if we talk about mindfulness is this daily practice of being conscious and aware. And so I talk about on the ADD spectrum, it's critically important to engage in micro meditations, which has become a really robust term. I've been using it for about 7 or 8 years. The idea that we do meditations for a short period of time. 1, 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Stop yourself. The 5 breath pressure technique from the...
You guys can go find that. There's a small video on the 5 breath pressure technique that you can watch.
Right, from our
James
first
guides
talk.
us through it.
And it's super simple, but these things don't have to be hard. You're mindfully living your life when you're conscious to it in the moment.
Yeah. You're
That's
here
it.
now.
Yep, you're here now. So that's mindfulness on the ADD spectrum. And it's something that it's critical to learn as a resource because it's a centering tool.
I 1,000% agree with this. I did the MBSR, not as a trainer of it or a facilitator of it, but as a person learning it and going through. It's an 8-week,
Right.
And that's one entrance into mindfulness, the
Yep.
John Kabat-Zinn. There's a ton of ways to enter into mindfulness, whether you find an app like Headspace. There's a ton of apps out there.
Oh, there are.
There are Insight Timers.
Insight Timer's a
one.
big one. Can I give you my favorites?
Hell yeah.
Okay, so Insight Timer is one of my favorites because Chris, who was the original developer of it, I was on his app in 2009. There was like 3,000 people. There's like 9 million people on it now.
Early adopter.
And he was always wanting to give back to the community and to the people. He always has a free version that's robust and meaningful, has over 10,000 teachers on it. He gives back to them, and he has built a beautiful platform. The reason I like it on the ADHD spectrum is a lot of variety and connection. And I tell people, look for things that are shiny, weird, and unusual for 3 to 5 minutes first, which grabs your mind to learn how to be mindful. And it's interesting and intriguing to us. And the little story I tell about that is, I had to be 5 or 6 years ago. I was on that app and I started to listen to a meditation. It was a woman speaking in some Eastern Slavic language. I could not understand it. I almost turned it off.
Yeah.
And 20 seconds later, I was hooked into the cadence of her voice, and all the ups and downs. And it turned off the language in my head. And so all I was listening to was the sounds and the cadence of this beautiful I still don't know what the language was, but it taught me, we need something shiny, strange, and unusual. That's one way to grab a toehold for mindfulness, to really learn.
Find something weird, unusual for 3 minutes.
Right.
To get
Singing
you hooked
bowls, someone doing
You guys,
chanting.
you can pick the bowl.
Yeah.
You can go in because there's a bowl that will ring you can set the duration
Right,
every
so you can
minute or every 2
customize
minutes.
the
You can
bowls.
pick a big bowl, a small bowl,
Exactly.
metal bowl, wooden
wood
bowl.
Exactly.
What do you want?
A glass bowl. What do you want?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of choice, and I like that on the
We're not
spectrum.
advertising. They don't pay us any money. We just both, I think, appreciate Insight
Yes.
Timer.
Yes. So
But Insight Timer, if you want to, sponsor the show, I'll accept that.
Right. And so the other one that is my favorite, that would be a great sponsor to get on the show as well. There's an app called Sync Tuition.
Sync Tuition.
SYNCTUITION. Okay. You're syncing your intuition. This is as much of a mindfulness meditation app as it is a neurological training app to keep you in what's called a gamma flow state of 40 megahertz in the mind.
Does it shoot frequencies into your
Yes.
ear in a bilateral stimulation
Yes.
way? Because I've used binaural beats. I've used a couple things to do this, but
Correct.
this Sync Tuition does it.
Sync Tuition does it in a robust way because of this. This was an app they took 8 or 9 years to put together. They recorded the sounds firsthand across the world. It is the most robust, quality produced app that I have found. Now, it is a subscription fee every year. I think it's $95. I think it's a $300 lifetime fee. So that's not inexpensive, but it's something that's worth it. Why? In my opinion, this is the only meditation app I've ever used. I am in this 2.5 years later, and I still use it on a daily basis.
Wow. Did you buy the lifetime subscription?
Yes,
Yeah, you
of
did.
course I did, because early on. Now, here, let me tell you what Sync Tuition is, and they're not paying me. Again, you want to sponsor this podcast, that'd be great.
Call James and Phil Phails.
But I'm telling you, because Sync
Tuition.
Tuition is an app that puts together binaural beats, hemisync music, which crosses left and right hemisphere, like we talked about with the MDR. It's a very balancing act, like doing an Infinity 8 with your hand or Tai Chi. All that's very balancing. And then it uses ASMR music, which is surround sound music that puts you in something that feels like an IMAX theater in your head. So you've got sounds coming from all over the place. So you're using a good set of headphones to listen to these. There are 8 levels in Sync Tuition. There are 20 meditations in each level. There's 160 meditations that are 20 to 25 minutes long. You will sound like you're going into your own space bubble, because it is a woman's voice who is teaching you this is what you're going to focus on. So they're training your neurology to stay into a gamma flow state so that the fray of distress and all these other things below it don't bother you as much during the day.
Okay.
And I guarantee you it helps over time. Some people find it too stimulating or it's too much chaos. Or to me, it's a training app that allows you to connect to yourself. And you can only, when you're going through the first 8 levels, okay, on the first time, you can only do one meditation every 12 hours. Because they know from a neurological network point of view, you're creating a neural net of strength. Okay. And so they don't want to overtap it. Now I've been through all 8 levels 4 times, and I use them fluidly back and forth. They have background music. I just haven't found another meditation app that has created a connection to binaural beats and a neurological training space. Phil.
Yeah. So what we're sharing now is there are apps out there that can help you guys get to mindfulness, which is this resource we're talking about. The 4th resource is mindfulness.
Yes.
There's apps like
Insight Timer.
There's Sync Tuition. There's binaural beats. There's a bunch of stuff out there.
Yeah, there's Awake. There's all kinds of really
Headspace.
Headspace. There's lots of ones that are very popular and very helpful.
Yeah.
You want to find one that works for you.
There's also great thought leaders on this. John Kabat-Zinn. I think Thich Nhat Hanh has I'm a big Thich Nhat Hanh fan.
Right.
You can also find a contemplative practice community. If you want to engage with mindfulness or meditation communities, it doesn't have to be a religious decision.
Right.
It can be a decision that's about being here now, being present.
Well, but it
can be about...
Yes, and it's really what's the simplest way to meditate? Just be curious and observant of your environment.
Back to that first thing. Be curious about your environment.
Absolutely. So mindfulness and meditation is a wonderful space.
Yeah. That's the 4th resource. What's another resource?
So let's go to appreciation, gratitude.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we look at what appreciation and gratitude is or is not, all right. First of all, it's a stopping to reflect on your sense of self from a compassionate, empathetic point of view.
Self-compassion?
Absolutely. And self-compassion and empathy for yourself are one of the key elements. If you look at Kristen Neff's work.
Kristen Neff's work.
She's
UT.
at UT. Exactly. She is very well known on the compassion, self-compassion, connection point of view, and some great meditations.
Do you have an in with her? Can we get her on the show?
She may be able to get. I've done training with her. She may know of me.
Man, I would love it to have Kristen Neff on the show. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
The work she's done on self-compassion
is incredible.
I've read a lot of it. You guys go look at her work. It's phenomenal.
It is. It is really phenomenal.
And it's that reframing. It's that, what is your relationship to yourself, to your history, to your experience.
Right. So to me, appreciation and gratitude is an elixir for the stress in today's world. The stress in today's world is multiplying at levels based on technology, stress, and information. I said this in our last podcast that we talked about. What are the things coming at us that are really creating problems? To me, being appreciative and grateful around you is a counterbalance to that, is a way to create a path down the middle. And there's a model in the law of attractions material, okay? And the law of attraction has a lot of materials in it. One of the materials is an appreciation gratitude meter for 68 seconds. It's a 68-second technique.
I think, did we do that? I think we might have done that at the end of our last...
We might have. And so
we shared gratitudes back and forth for a certain amount of time.
Exactly. But that shifts the mindset. So that appreciation, gratitude, I like bringing it up. And one of the reasons I like bringing it up is particularly in relationships with couples who are long-term or with children. Okay.
I think about John Gottman. 2 things. I think about John Gottman and the 5-to-1 positives to negatives.
Right.
To win. And it was about bids for connection, but I think you could look at that in the way that they view their relationship.
Absolutely.
The way they view their life. Are they having 5 positive experiences to every 1 negative?
Correct. And those experiences help to insulate you.
Yeah. Resilience makes their relationship more robust.
So if you're an adult with ADHD or within a marriage or a personal relationship, partnership, showing appreciation and gratitude every way you can.
I agree with that.
Is very much one of the ways to keep it balanced. And so a lot of times I'll talk with couples about what's your appreciation and gratitude meter like.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are some of the things like I'll be talking about at the conference here in October. It's like, how do you stay connected to someone else? Will you communicate with them? How can you communicate simply? Well, I can appreciate and be grateful for who you are.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
Yeah.
All the time. Thank you, honey, for picking up the glass I left for the umpteenth time at the back of the house when we're doing dishes or dish. Thank you for bringing it
This
forward.
is a really important point, I think, with gratitude and appreciation, that it's not just, I like you. It's not just like, you're good. There's a specificity to it that's important.
Yes.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yes.
I kind of get back into a nonviolent communication thing.
It is.
It's the observation.
Right.
What did they do?
Right.
How did I feel when they did it?
Right.
What was the impact on my life?
Correct.
Get very specific.
Yes.
And then, the request would be like, keep doing more of that, or it's really observation, feeling. It met my need for something.
Right.
It met my need for love. It met my
Right.
need for appreciation,
Well,
for support.
and I've done a lot of couples work before, right? With a lot of couples with ADD, where either both ADD or one is ADD, or those in the disruptions there. And one of the things I'll ask them is, where is your appreciation and gratitude meter?
Right.
And I have never had anyone. There's almost very few always in NEFRs in counseling, right? I've never had anyone say, "Oh, I've been appreciated enough. Oh, you don't have to give me any more gratitudes."
Yeah.
Because it's like a hug. It's like a handhold.
Yeah.
So appreciation and gratitude, I can't say enough about it. Keep doing it.
Another thing, I think it's really important to be intentional about appreciation and gratitude. I'm not a scientist. I'll preface it with this, but I have a belief that the human brain automatically weighs negative things higher. Mm-hmm. It stores them more readily. So anything that happens that's bad in your life, it's going to make a larger imprint in your mind, in your memory. So putting active intention and thoughtfulness around gratitude tends to then put that balance.
Yes.
It creates that balance between this thing where your brain's like making bad things big.
Right.
It's saying, oh, I'm going to intentionally make good things weigh the same.
Yes.
Or even overweigh.
And here we go back to homeostasis and balance again, Phil, because the reality is the survival instinct in the middle of the brain, the threat center, right, has been overactivated or overtaxed. And that's where that negativity being the bias comes from. The mind's going to remember something that was a threat or perceived as a threat.
Yeah.
If you can train this balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Negativity bias is what it's called.
Absolutely.
And so we're balancing out that negativity bias with gratitude, appreciation.
Yes, for yourself, for others, for your environment, for what you have, for who you are, for what you see, for where you live. I mean, name it.
Yeah.
And it's a way that, and over time, it becomes something that becomes natural.
Right.
You see the world that way.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm sure there's people watching this. There's definitely a ton of people out in the world that can find themselves in the dumps.
Oh yeah, all the time. It's
also known
easy.
as depression.
Yes. And so even for me, if I look at my imposter syndrome is still probably one of my most robust defense, difficult kind of spaces in my life. It's natural, but it's because I'm comparing myself. I can throw into that immediately. And the first thing I do is I show appreciation and gratitude for whoever I'm feeling an imposter about.
Yeah.
Okay, whether it's another ADD author or someone else in life, I'm like, wait a minute, that's a kind person who's got this in their life. And then I'll go back to myself. These are the things I have. It's not about comparison. It's about union. It's about being able to connect to each other.
We can all be out there doing cool stuff at the same time.
So appreciation, gratitude, all this space, compassion, those pieces are critical. It's a great tool, part of this.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Should we do one more?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. This is a fun one for me. I don't know that I haven't done a lot of this, but I actually did do a podcast on this spontaneously because I used it as part of my ADHD town hall one time.
Is this in the complex, that podcast?
It's not in that podcast. This is on a different podcast. This is an ADD podcast from Nikki Kinzer called Taking Control of ADHD.
Okay.
She could be very interested in maybe having you on her show.
I'd love to.
Because she talks a lot about ADD and how people resource and what people are doing and what you're doing with your shininess of your own podcast.
Which is having James here. This is what I'm doing with my ADHD.
But we just get this piece where we help each other.
Yeah.
And we support each other.
Okay.
So on this podcast, I talked about what's called mining the gems of your life history.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is a tool for mining the gems of your life history. This would be a great one, kind of maybe even a final one to talk about here because it's a big one.
Okay.
When you look at mining the gems of your life history, we're talking about the darkness, the difficulty, the problems. So we can talk about desensitizing it from a trauma point of view. I can neutralize it. I can find ways I want to be different and better. But my key piece to mental health in life, one of my key, what I call bumper stickers is learning to understand your life and your life history for what it is, okay, is one of the most critical things to do, because understanding your life history can be the most valuable resource you have. I want you to see your life history as a rich book of knowledge that you can flip through and go back to. So I could go tell you how at 5 years old, I throw a temper tantrum and pick up the dining room table on my back and spin it around and cause this huge commotion. But the intensity of who that little 5-year-old is still the intensity of who I am as a 62-year-old expert. It's that drive. So now I can go back to that potentially dark history in my life, and I have found resource from it.
We're talking about reframing.
Reframing at its deepest level. And so a way to reframe, in my opinion, on these mining the gems histories of your life is to look at the experience, strength, hope, wisdom, and knowledge that come from it. Why do I want you to walk through these 5 different arenas? Because it gives you pathways to reflect and understand it and or reframe what you went through.
And you're meeting yourself with self-compassion.
Yes.
You're saying, oh, look at that resilient kiddo.
Yes.
Look at all the energy and passion there.
Yes.
Look at, even if some aspects of it were antisocial or
difficult.
Or difficult for the folks around them, that's passion and drive. That's you're seeing it in a way that is positive.
And I'm not trying to just paint over it.
You're kind of parenting yourself, because your parent might not have done that.
Correct.
Your parent might have come down really hard on you.
Or they may have been overwhelmed and not known what to do, whatever.
Yeah, not in a negative way.
But they
didn't know what to do.
Right.
And so you could have gotten a traumatic experience from the way that they interacted with you during that time.
Right.
And you need to go back and parent yourself in the right way and say, hey, little buddy, hey, little James.
Hey, what's going on here?
You got the little turtle shell of the table there, and you're really having a good time.
Exactly. But, there's some other ways to do this. Let's go put your energy over here. Let's go do these things.
Redirecting.
Exactly.
You talked about that redirected parenting technique or something.
The redirecting children's behavior.
Yeah,
RCB is a really good parenting space. But so if you look at this mining your life history gems, this experience, you look at the experience you took from the situation. What did I learn? Who did I go, experience strength? What strengths did I encounter? What strengths do I have now as a result of it? If you look at a wisdom you might have taken from it, things that really taught yourself about your life history that are meaningful and important to you.
So this starts with going back to a historic event.
Yeah, something that was difficult, something that you didn't, because Phil, what happens if I have a life history, but I don't want to talk about it? I can't tell people about it. I'm shamed about it. I'm embarrassed about it. I have to cap it.
Yeah.
Neurologically, that cap is a mental energy drain. Okay. My body has to keep it. Now, our body does these in thousands of ways and dissipates them naturally to keep our health going. But if you get too many of those little bitty caps going on about your life history, you can't live your life presently.
Yeah.
That's where post-traumatic stress comes from. And so you want to have a system to be able to go back and, yes, reframe, to cognitively, behaviorally kind of understand, talk to yourself. This is just my fun model way of doing it. So experience, strength, hope, wisdom, knowledge, the knowledge you took from the situation, the hope you took from the situation. Okay? Any of those threads you can go through. And that's not some proprietary measure that I've figured. No, it's just a natural way of looking at your life to come to terms with it so that it becomes a chapter in your life history, in the book of your life history that you can resource. Yeah. That you can say, hey, check this out. So here's a fun resource I discovered after having worked on my trauma history for a long time. Because as you were saying, negative traumas, will capture the vast majority of neurological energy in the mind. 8 years old, I'm living in a house with 10 people, 3 dogs, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. It's chaos. There's just no way it's not.
Yeah.
I'm 8 years old. I go into the bathroom to take a bath. I close the door. I put a towel under the bottom of it so that I don't have to hear other people and other things. I fill the bathtub up as high as it can go, put a wash rag in the overflow valve to get it a little higher. I do what? I float in the hot tub until it gets cold with just my face above so I can obviously stay alive and breathe. But I was in my own sensory deprivation tank at 8 years old.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to hear all the chaos. It was a way that my body was resourcing itself. So guess what's one of my favorite things to have at home? We have a 75-gallon jacuzzi tub on purpose.
You can ISO bath there.
All the time.
Isolation tank.
It's one of my greatest resources that I use. And so
you mine that from your history.
Absolutely.
Mining the gems from your history.
Right. And they're all over the place. So your history is a rich, rich life source.
And
I want
it
people
almost
to be able to
converts
use
it from a haunted house.
Right.
My history, when I think back, there's a lot of haunted houses in my history. And if I could pressure wash those to kind of keep playing on a theme here, if I could go back and clean those up and say, hey, maybe that wasn't a ghost. Maybe that wasn't a snake in the room. Maybe that was just a coiled up rope.
Right.
Maybe that wasn't maybe it can be a beautiful house.
And what did I learn from it?
And there's
Who
also
am I now
trauma.
as a
It's
result?
both and.
Well, sure, because
There were difficult experiences.
Right.
That's part of the human experience.
Correct.
What did I learn from it? How did that make me the man I am or the woman I am today?
Right.
How do I grow from it?
Right.
It's like finding the gifts, finding the gems.
And how do I release other people from that history? Forgiveness, compassion. They were doing the best they could with what they had. They were loving, caring people. Many of us, I don't believe.
And that gets real. That hits close to home. I still don't talk to my mom.
That's sad.
Because
really
I don't
sad.
think I've figured out how to forgive her for the childhood I have. And these conversations here is like, it brings that up. And I think, how do I reframe this? How do I have an experience where I can reconnect with that woman?
Well, you got 2 steps here to practice if you want to. One is you just take the act of forgiveness on whether you feel it or not. Mom, I forgive you.
Fake it till you make it.
And you're not even faking it because you're actually setting off an echo in the brain that begins to build that network of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, you take a look at the harm that was involved and you ask yourself, are there still ways in which you're harming yourself like that to yourself? And you begin to give yourself forgiveness and compassion. Are there things that I am now doing that I'm not taking care of myself that would mimic those times that occurred?
Because they modeled something and then I just carry the torch in my own life. I don't need them to be the traumatic abusers, if you will.
Right.
I'm now doing that to myself.
Yes.
Where I put the magnifying glass on myself, my behaviors, and look at how am I doing these things?
In my own lack of self-care or whatever, because part of what may be happening and holding, quote unquote, a resentment, right? You know, the great topic about resentment or the great statement about resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Yeah. We hate it, but it's true.
Yeah.
So the reality is in the letting go of that, you get mental energy back. But it's normal, it's natural, and you're holding on to it for a reason. It's maybe giving you energy. You don't know how to get other energy or life source. Who knows what it comes from? But that's a mining your life history, Jim.
And I imagine there are folks out there that are it's appropriate for them not to have relationships with people in their life that are maybe still abusive or still problematic in their life.
Right.
And they can decide to forgive them.
Right.
And still choose to have a strong boundary with regard to how they play a role in their life.
Absolutely. So absolutely setting boundaries in a healthy way that are meaningful with those that were not in your best interest or were difficult.
But still forgive them.
Oh, I did this with both of my parents. So I learned to have relationships with them with who they were without them changing. Yeah. As an adult. And I had beautiful relationships with my parents before they passed. And so But I do want to let people know that, if you want to learn more about these kind of things, right, I'm doing a conference here in Austin on October the 19th, Saturday, at the downtown library at the beautiful, beautiful training center. If you want to learn more about this, then come to this conference. That's going to be happening from 9 to 5.
Yep.
They'll be in the show notes. There'll be a link here. But if you want to learn more about what we're doing today, check out my conference. I really love to have everyone there. We've got plenty of room for plenty of people, but I just really love what we're doing here, Phil.
I love the plug, and these are like timeless videos.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is get folks to go to James Ochoa's website.
Yeah.
Go find James Ochoa on social media and see what he's doing now. You guys might be watching this in 2085. Yeah. Well, he might not be doing workshops at that time, but whenever you watch this video, go check out what James Ochoa is doing now, and see if this is the type of content that you're interested in. If you want this kind of support, there's a lot of ways James can influence you and teach you and provide support for whatever you're going through. He's an ADHD pathfinder.
Yeah. And I really love what I do 35 years later. I don't see it slowing down. I have a funny little story to tell here at the end. When I turned 60, I'm 62 now. When I turned 60, someone asked me how old I was going to be, how long would I live.
We talked about this in the beginning. You've got
111.
111.
Triple ones. So I'm still headed there. It's still working.
Are you doing, just from a discussion, kind of the way you're supporting folks, you doing virtual sessions with people?
I'm doing virtual sessions only now.
So you don't have to be in Austin, Texas if you want to work with James?
No, and if you're outside the state of Texas, my licensing doesn't go outside the state of Texas, but I do ADHD coaching and strategy management, development, those kind of things with anyone, anywhere, anytime.
So you can't put that on your insurance, but he can still provide that support within the context of coaching. Right.
And I have so much resource on my website. I have a podcast about, ADD and how to handle it.
The Complex?
The Complex.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's a radio narrative fiction theater.
I'll go find The Complex.
It's a fun listen.
You're doing that with your son?
I did that with my youngest son, who produced this for me, and my writing coach and editor, Robin. It is it's funny. It's hilarious. You'll learn about Crispy, who is one of the characters in there, or Genius Boy, who's another character.
I've listened to some of these. It's set within the context of an apartment complex, and all the characters are different people, but it is, the apartment complex is the ADHD person, right?
Correct. Well, the apartment complex is where they all live. So the reality is that apartment complex, you discover all these different types of ADD by the different people who live there. And then I do an Afterthoughts podcast after each episode, which teaches you about that type of ADD. I love the design. I think it's a brilliant design. I am hoping and planning on a season 3. If there's a sponsor out there for my complex, let me know. Because I'd love to be able to produce this long term, because I think it's really necessary. And what you're doing here, Phil, is critically important. You're living your passion as an adult with ADHD, and you're finding your way within it, and you're discovering. I've watched you create this podcast literally out of nothing.
Yeah.
But genius and passion and drive and vision, and it's happening.
I really appreciate that.
The number of people that you have on here from the variety of cultures, it gives people a lot of variety and diversity. That's what our ADD mind need.
That's what we need. That's what I need.
That's what I need.
And I think the thing that it ties it all together is people that help people.
Yeah.
People that are skilled helpers.
Well, people who help themselves.
That too.
And it's a turnaround, right? This interrelated.
You can only help yourself, right?
Correct.
I mean, you
are your own most powerful resource.
Right. So people that influence you in the direction of your own healing, or in the direction of your own resourcing, to give you tools, because you got to do the work.
Absolutely.
When you leave, I've got to do the work. I've got to choose to let those legs burn until I get to the top of the hill, and reframe that into power and growth. I've got to do the gratitude practice. I've got to, that's where the healing occurs.
It does.
But we can say, let's point at the moon together.
Yep.
Just make sure we're both looking at the moon and not at the finger.
Right. And that we can connect with each other through these things that are compassionate and meaningful and wonderful. And the rest takes care of itself. We live fun, adventurous lives. I'm an adult with ADD in a moderate to severe range. I'm hell on wheels. I was certainly hell on wheels growing up.
We should get your wife on this show.
We talked about maybe doing a couples. Boy, that would be an interesting world.
We'll do Phil Phails at couples. Well, both of you guys on here. The Ochoas.
Because it's an adventure in living.
Yeah.
And that adventure is just rich. And it's like a roux that you're making. It gets richer as you go. If you stay present and connected to your life, I don't think there's any end to that depth. How can there be? It's a wonderful space to be in.
And an adventure.
Absolutely.
And yeah. Okay, talk to us a little bit about the book, the next book. We talked about it a little bit in the first interview.
So in writing this second book, I'll give you a little spoiler alerts here for which are fun. So we knew we wanted to write about when the shiny wears off.
And when you're saying we, it's you and Robin, your writing coach.
Right. My writing coach and editor, who's actually going to be a co-author in this book.
Okay, Robin
Schatzenoff. She's a writer. She's an editor. She's a writing coach.
Yeah.
And she has been my coach in writing the first in Focus Forward, and she's doing the second book with me. And we have this wonderful menagerie way of writing together that's just hard to describe, but it's like an art project.
Yeah. Okay.
But the book itself, we knew we wanted to talk about the storms that didn't go away for adults with ADD, whether it's organization or self-esteem or communication patterns or relationship issues. So we were writing about these storms and coming up with, and by the way, we brainstormed like 84 different storms that adults with ADD can go through. And I think that was the tip of the iceberg. And we found ourselves after 3, 4, 5 months being overwhelmed by this. Every time I would look at these storms, I'd get nauseous because they were real. And we realized that we're going to write about the storms in this book, but not in such detail that it nauseates us. We want to write about resource. We want to write about thriving. One of the fun things we're going to produce in this book is the title, When the Shiny Wears Off. What does shiny mean, Phil, in our lives as ADD adults? What's a good shiny? What's a bad shiny? Okay, how do we determine the differences between the two? The things we go after in life versus the things we let go of.
Yeah. Critical
to know those things, to be able to communicate that to others. We're going to talk about career and relationships. And this is an ongoing process. ADHD as a genetic, neurological, developmental condition doesn't go away. Does it ever going to go away? You learn to resource yourself, where I would say my life is enormously wonderful and in balance. Do I have some imbalances? Sure. Are they ADD related? Absolutely. I still have storms, but I recover in a way that's meaningful. It's an adventure, and I know who the heck I am. So I wanted to provide a second book which help people to understand when you know everything you need to know about this and it's still hard, what do you do?
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm really looking forward to this. We probably won't be out until the spring of 26, so we've still got about a year and a half of writing, I think, of kind of putting together. But, I'm not going to predict that space. It's a life of its own, and it'll be here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
James Ochoa, LPC. He's an ADHD pathfinder, the author of the book Focus Forward, Navigating the Storms of Adult ADHD, working on a second book, When the Shiny Wears Off, Navigating the Lifetime Storms of Adult ADHD, providing conferences and workshops, working with folks virtually, supporting people that live with ADHD, that thrive with ADHD.
And, I will have courses here soon for those with ADD and professionals treating it and learning how to do and what I know about. So I see those coming online in the next 6 months or so.
Working with professionals that want to work with ADHD folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Coaches,
so there's both sides.
Exactly.
Working with the people that have ADHD and working with people that work with people that have ADHD.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And y'all can go back. This is his second time on the show. You can watch the first one where we talk about Phil Phails at ADHD, thriving with it, the 5 questions, his life story, which I thought was, a wonderful adventure. So thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, outside of understand, Your life history is the most invaluable part of your world. Don't ever throw pieces of it away. Understand how it's made you who you are and step into your passion for living. And like I say, once you've discovered your passions, what are you in a rush for? You just have the rest of your life.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
lot
Can
of
we
fun.
end with a hug?
We can end with a
I
hug.
love that.
I love hugs.
Just move this like that.
And like
Bam.
that.
Thank you so much, James.
Absolutely, Phil.